Refresh Franchising, the heroic choice for entrepreneurs. Proud sponsor of the Distilled Wisdom podcast.
It's fine to reject more than you accept. That's actually a good indicator in any franchise system, right?
I wish more franchisors would listen is kind of where I'm going with that, is because I think a lot of them neglect a lot of the foundational stuff starting out.
When you get into a franchise system or you start your own business, you got to give it 100%. Even for franchisees, when they're looking at any franchise as well, that's one of the things they need to be looking at is how long has the business been going on for? That starting your business is not about strategy. It's about actual execution. In the first 5 minutes, you decide whether you want to proceed with them or you don't.
Welcome back to Distilled Wisdom. So we have had a little bit of everybody on the show so far. We've had suppliers, we've had franchisors, we've had franchisees. Today, I have Jayesh Kasim. Jayesh is with Valenta. This is an interesting guest because he's kind of a cross in the franchise world. He's both a supplier and a franchisor. And he's the co-founder of Valenta. Welcome to the show, Jayesh.
Hey, thanks, Adam. I appreciate it.
Tell me a little bit about your company, because I've been online and I went through both your service website and your franchise website, and it seems like an interesting model to me. And you guys have one of the longest service offering lists I've ever seen, I think. So what exactly does your company do?
All right. So, at Valenta, what we do is we help businesses increase profitability, right? And we do this using three main services, right? The first is consulting. This is where we make sure businesses have the right processes in place, right?
Okay.
And so that's really the consulting piece. Then we get into technology, right? If they've got the right processes, now do they have the right pieces of technology to get it all working, right? So this could be a CRM, it could be an ERP, it could be using software robots, it could be, so it's pretty much full CRM all the way through to RPA and AI solutions, right? And finally, for things that cannot be automated, that's where we provide staffing, right? And these are onshore, nearshore, offshore, really depends on what the business needs. So with these three services, we really help businesses increase their efficiency, increase their profitability. Now, when you get onto a website, you got to see a whole range of services, right? And that's really because, in consulting, there is a lot of it, right? There's process consulting, there could be HR consulting, there could be cybersecurity consulting, and so on, right? And every business is going to need a range of these. So really, that's why.
So you can fill all of those voids with your company.
Correct. So what we do in our business is, as we identify a need in the market, if we don't have a service, we create the service. And that's really how Valenta has sort of, created its services portfolio. We started off 10 years ago, with the staffing business. We really were providing virtual staff to businesses in Australia, and that's how we started. Then we realized, well, for businesses to get the best out of staffing, they need to have the right processes, and there were gaps there. And that's when we started our consulting service. And when we got into consulting, when we were looking at, processes, we realized there were gaps in technology. And that got us into the digital transformation practice that we have today. And, so that's really how, we just keep staying ahead of the curve.
That's kind of a wild journey, scaling into so many things over that time frame. Like, how long did it take you to add on those different branches? You started the company, it sounds like, with the general consulting, right? And then
staffing and then consulting. It usually takes about 2 years to, every time we start up a new service, it's about 2 years before it gets to a good maturity level, before it can be scaled up.
Okay.
Right now we have our most recent one is a product. It's a sustainability product. And, that's been 2 years in development. And today, it's at a nice spot now for us to be able to take it to market and to scale it up, right?
And now you're in, what was it? And correct me if I'm wrong, but it looked like 14 different countries.
It keeps changing. So as of now, we're 18. So, we just started in Belgium last month. So 18 countries today.
What's it like navigating the different legal structures in all these countries? Like, how do you handle a process like that, especially in such a short time frame? You said you're 10 years in, so The company's been around for 10 years. My company's 8 years old, right? And I'm just looking at crossing state lines, and you're crossing international borders. What's that look like when you go into a new country? What's like due diligence look like setting up there?
I think you just need to have the right partner, right? You just make sure you've got the right legal firm, you've got the right accounting partner on the ground, and then it takes care of itself. And it's today, when we extend into a new market, it's for us, we've done it quite a few times. It's not that hard for us to do. You know what I mean? We just get the right partners. We know how we set up. So in every country we go in, we keep it quite simple in the sense that in every country we'll have one or two entities and a holding company, and that's it. You know what I mean? We do not have, complex structures, where one entity is holding another entity in a different country and so on as well. And that keeps it quite simple, right? And Europe, for example, while we started off in Belgium, our European company is, we're incorporated in Germany, and that looks after all of EU, right? So we don't have to worry about setting up a company in Germany or in Luxembourg or Netherlands and so on. It's just one German company, and that does it all.
Okay.
But, when you get into LATAM, for example, right? You can't, it doesn't work the same way, right? So we have a company in Colombia, we have one in Mexico, and, we just have to keep setting up these entities as we get into each of those markets.
So do you have a parent company? It sounded like no. Do you have a parent company over this, or is this part of the franchise model?
No, so we don't, right? In every jurisdiction, so in the US, we have two entities, right? But we have one that does our franchising side, we have one that does our services, and we have a holding company. That's it, right? Okay. So that's what we have in the US. It's exactly the same in the UK, right? We have two companies in the UK and a holding company that sits on top. We have the same structure in Australia, and that's it. We keep it nice and simple that way.
What made you decide to franchise? So, actually, let's step back even further. What got you into the business? So you're one of the co-founders. What's your background prior to this, and what brought you into this space?
Yeah. So prior to starting Valenta, I was a franchisee myself for another brand, right? So prior to that, so my background is engineering. I was working and so on, and I decided I wanted to do something by myself. So I purchased a franchise at that time, right? It was a financial services franchise. Think about it more as a bank branch, right? Mm-hmm. So we were offering mortgages, insurances, and so on. So I started with one location in 2010.
Is this in Australia?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And then over a period of 3 years, I opened 3, right? But when I opened the first one, I realized there was a lot of processing that needed to be done, right? There's processing of mortgage applications, insurance applications, and so on. And it didn't really make sense for us to have local staff doing that piece, right? The economics just wouldn't make it doesn't make commercial sense. So I set up a team out of India to help me do that, right? It started working really well. And what it let us do is it let us spend more on local area marketing, right? With that, we got more customers. And then what we did is we started hiring more people locally to do client-facing work, right? So it made complete sense, right? It worked well. We were able to turn around mortgage applications and insurance applications a lot quicker than
so I got to pry a little bit. Did the franchisor that you were franchising with, when you're doing this, did they start to adopt these practices with you, or?
Yeah. So what happened is others within the franchise were looking at us, right? The other franchisees, and they're like, hey, what are you guys doing? Like, how is it working? And we told them what we were doing, and they started using our services. And that's when we realized, well, it worked for us. It's working for others within the franchise network, which means, really it can be a model that we can scale up and we can take it globally, make it a global business. And that's when I decided to sell that franchise. So I sold the 3 units that I had, and set up Valenta as an entity to pretty much take services to market. So we had no intention of franchising at that point in time. We really just wanted to take our services to market and keep growing. And that's what we did.
And do more corporate model.
Yeah, exactly. So that's really what we did for the first 5 years, right? And then we got to a stage where, we started in Australia, then we went to the UK, then we did the US, Canada, New Zealand, and so on. And we validated the model ourselves, right? And in doing that for 5 years, we realized, well, getting clients isn't a challenge, right? But how do you stay close to customers now? That's important. How do you become the strategic partners? And that's when we were thinking about scaling, right? And there was 2 options. One was, we could get some private equity, and then we could hire a sales team. Globally, we could do that. But there's pros and cons of that, right? And the other option was to create a unique franchise opportunity.
Do you have any private equity involved now?
No, we don't. Okay. So it's just self-funded, and just keep growing organically.
That's like the number one topic in franchising, right? Between franchisors is always that PE question. It's do you do it? Do you do? Don't you take it, right?
And again, it's great for some models. Some models need it. To accelerate the growth or whatever it is. I think it's there's a fit for it in certain models.
Okay. So you essentially, it sounds like, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it sounds like you started franchising so that you could be closer and service the clients better, right? So that you had a closer pulse on your clients. Did retention end up increasing when you started franchising out locations? I'd imagine that's what the goal was, right?
Yeah, look, retention, I wouldn't say, for us, it was more so client acquisition than retention, right?
Okay.
Because, we were able to, we keep scaling our team, right? Every month we keep adding new team members and so on. So that way we were able to manage those relationships, right? But maybe growing those accounts, maybe we weren't doing a great job at it, right? Because we just were spreading ourselves too thin.
Mm-hmm.
But, the minute we started with the franchise model, we started allocating existing accounts to our franchise partners as well. So they could start growing those accounts, right? And that worked well. And it's more about getting new business, right? Adding new logos and so on as well. And, our franchise partners help us with that.
Now, how many franchisees do you have?
Yeah, we're slightly over 50 right now. We just signed 2 last week, both in New Jersey.
Congratulations.
So, no, thank you. So we've got about half in the U.S. and half outside international.
Okay. So you're really getting a lot in the U.S. then, it sounds like. That's where the predominant growth is with the franchise side?
Yeah. Look, our vision is to get to 500, right, globally, and we expect 250 in the U.S. and 250 international.
Awesome. Yeah. That's very cool. Tell me a little bit about how it works for a franchisee, because again, I went through your website and you have regional directors, right? And how large are their territories, right? And how do they work with the franchisees in the area? It was kind of interesting how this goes.
Yeah. So, for us, again, less is more, right? That's how we look at it. Mm-hmm. So, we have managing directors, and our managing directors are really our master franchise or area developers, right?
Okay.
Really, that's what they're doing. So they look after a certain region. So in the US, we have 4, that look after the entire country. So it's quite a lot of states that they look after, sure. Right? So their role is predominantly, firstly, recruiting managing partners into the particular area. And then once they bring them on, support them, right? And help them build a successful business. So it's a dual role. So the way we look at it is for the first few years, it's going to be heavy on the recruitment side. And after that, it's going to be heavy on the ongoing support,
So how big of an area is so a managing partner is essentially your franchisee, right?
That's correct.
And so how big is an area for a managing partner generally?
So we go with a ratio of 1 franchise partner for every 2,000 businesses, right? And that's 2,000 businesses that have over 10 employees. That's really how we go about it. That being said,
I'm curious about how you measure that metric, right? Because is it geographically? Because a lot of businesses are spread out all over the place. And how do you calculate that?
Yeah, you're right. And look, in B2B, right, it's very challenging. It's very tricky to tell a franchise partner, hey, these are your boundaries and you've got to stick in there, right? Mm-hmm. Because a lot of it's going to be, their personal, their professional network, right? And, they may very well have a client in, let's say, in California they do a great job. And, this business in California may tell them to work with another business in Texas, right? And you can't tell them, hey, you can't do that business. They should have the flexibility and so on as well. So the way we do our territory mapping is our territories are more for inbound lead distribution, right? So if we have someone in San Francisco, for example, we may have 10 people in San Fran, and it doesn't matter, right? Because San Fran can accommodate, based on our definition, a lot more, right? But we'll list them there on our website. So people come onto our website, they put in a lead submission or whatever, it directs to them. That's really what it is, right? However, outbound, they're free to do business globally, right? We just ask them not to market in another territory where there's an existing managing partner, right? But they're free to.
It's fair. I mean, that makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
That would have been my follow-up, but you pretty much answered it already. It would have been, how do you handle that when they get a lead outside their area? Do they have to get approval from the other, right?
And a lot of our partners work together, right? They may tap into somebody else because of the expertise that they have, right? Or, in the situation that I mentioned earlier where, a managing partner from California gets a referral to do business in Texas. While they could do it directly, they could also work with a managing partner on the ground in Texas, do a deal split, right? And that way the customer has someone local.
How do you support as the franchisor in those situations? Do you get involved with a contract agreement that they go into with where they're sharing like that?
It's quite simple, right? Again, we've got it all within our CRM, right? So in the CRM, the person that's originating the deal becomes the primary deal owner. The other managing partner becomes the secondary deal owner, right? And, it's a standard practice has been a 50-50 split, right? If they do decide that it's a different split, we have a project pricing module within the CRM again, right? So they can just go, they can work it out. So we cover all of this during our onboarding process itself. And so in addition to this, we do a lot where, our managing partners get together at quarterly conferences, right? And then we have managing directors as well. They understand how all of this works. So if we need to structure it for them, we help them structure it.
Okay. And I mean, your business itself is building these processes out anyway.
Yeah.
So I'm sure you have very sound systems in place for it.
Yeah.
So it's I'm coming from a different place where I'm trying to build this stuff out, and you have different skill sets, and, the knowledge of being able to help franchisors put these processes together. One of the things I noticed when I was at the emerging conference for franchisors, right? And some of the basics, everybody kept telling me, you have to do this, and they're talking about basic systems. And this is where I got really proud about my model. I still have to sell units to prove it, right? But I got really proud about it because they kept pointing out things that I should implement, and I should do this. And I'm like, well, I already have all that. I have that. And I had really good consultants that helped get me there, right? So I think your role is really, really important when it comes to this. And I wish more franchisors would listen, is kind of where I'm going with that, is because I think a lot of them neglect a lot of the foundational stuff starting out, and it ends up hurting them because they'll sell a handful of units and then everything lights on fire. And it really harms those foundational franchisees. What do you have advice you would give to a franchisor early stage like myself, and any specific tips in making sure you have those foundational systems?
Adam, look, in your business, right? So you've been going around for about 8 years right now. And I think, having that history is very important before you franchise. I think, and even for franchisees, when they're looking at any franchise as well, that's one of the things they need to be looking at is how long has the business been going on for? Or is it just an idea that is franchising from day one? You know what I mean? So I think, and if you've got that business going, then there is a bit of a transition, right? So, in our model as well, after when we decided to franchise, it took us 1 year to make sure we had the right systems. We had, the legal side is the easy piece.
Sure.
When you get the lawyers, they do all of that, but you want to make sure you've got the operating system working. So I think investing in that is very important. So whenever anyone's thinking about franchising, spend time. Just think about, it's not you, it's not your location. Now it's going to be 100. How is it going to work when you have requests coming in from 100? Do you have the infrastructure for it, right? And be practical about it as well, right? In the sense that you don't need to go and get an SAP set up straight away, right? But you may in 5 years or whatever it is, but there's spots, right? Let's think about what you need to get to your first 50, your first 100, and then keep going, right? And it's something that you have to evaluate. Your organization structure changes as well, when you get into franchising. So you got to start looking at that on a yearly basis as well.
So how do your partners look at this when they come into a company? How do they evaluate a company out to find out, do you do this part? Do you come in and look for the inefficiencies and try to identify it? Or do you wait until they come to you and ask you, like, I have this inefficiency, I need to fix it?
So you're talking about our customers, right?
Yeah.
Look, it depends, right? So sometimes what happens is, customers may come to us with a pain point, right? They may be like, for example, it could be like, look, I've got a bottleneck in my finance department. I just need that sorted, right? Can you get me some people? Or can you automate it using software robots? Great. We'll tackle that because that's our immediate need. However, we'll tell them, look, while we do this, once we're done with this, let's do an assessment, let's do a discovery and see all the other areas of the business that we can help you with, right? Yesterday, we had a couple of strategy sessions with a few franchisors, right? And we were doing discovery with them, right? We're trying to understand, look, and these discovery sessions can go anywhere between 2 to 4 hours, right? Sure. We're looking at, again, all aspects of the business. What are they doing for HR? What are they doing for finance? What are they doing for IT, cybersecurity? What are the technology they're using and so on, marketing, right? So we cover all these things. Once we do it, once we ask them questions, they tell us more about it. We then put together a strategy, right? And that will have a whole range of things. And usually the way we design it is things that have the highest impact and that have a strong ROI as well.
So you're essentially going like, we need to focus here first. And obviously it'll fund the rest of the development because this isn't a cheap process. I know that too. You're in a great space for profit margins, I'm sure. Right. Now, we can't discuss finances, obviously, but
again, Adam, when it comes to pricing and stuff as well, right? Consultants can be expensive, right? And that's why not a lot of businesses can afford them as well, right? You can't afford the big four and so on as well. But the way we've got our model is it works quite well. It's not expensive, right? It's very, very cost effective for our clients. And in most cases, the services pay for itself,
Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Citizens of Distilled Wisdom, gather around and listen up. If you're a fan of the show and want to join forces with its host, Adam Ferricane, then Refresh Franchising is the perfect choice for you. So gather your courage, summon your inner superhero, and visit refreshfranchising.com to launch your heroic franchise journey. Refresh Franchising, the heroic choice for entrepreneurs, proud sponsor of the Distilled Wisdom podcast.
Yeah, I mean, I can see that to an extent. How do you make it more affordable? Is it just because of the ROI of finding the efficiencies? Is that what you mean by that?
That's one, but also because of our model, the onshore, offshore, nearshoring model. You know what I mean? With a combination, it can become quite cost effective.
Okay. So back to like using in your early example of, when you started doing the call center out of India, that's bringing down the cost, obviously, because yeah.
And today it's a hybrid, right? There's certain things that need to be done on the ground and you keep it on the ground, you do it. There's certain things that don't need to be, right? So when you start doing, when you get that hybrid, the blended approach, you get your costs down. And also, our clients, they benefit a lot from having our managing partners, right? Because our managing partners are on the ground. They have consultative sales experience, right? Mm-hmm. So they understand business problems. They understand business challenges. So in a way, our clients are getting a consultant at no cost, because our managing partners are there. They're becoming strategic partner, helping them and navigating them through the challenges and the journey that our clients have.
Can I ask you a selfish question for myself? So I have to build out a call center, right? I'm going to be very support heavy in my model, and I'm doing that stateside, and I'm going to be operating that myself currently. Does that make sense, or is that kind of a stupid move when it comes cost wise? My thought process behind it is to have Native American speaking, English speaking customer service and have closer control over it. Relationships are really important in my model. Mm-hmm. We work B2B also, right? So in that sense, we have a similarity there where it's maintaining the relationships at the unit level. And so I really want to control my call center to where as we scale and we have different regions of the country, they're essentially chopped into departments by like state or region. Or, can you do that remotely? Does that make sense to do something like that? Or would that sacrifice on the quality of the service center?
Yeah. So Adam, I think the question to ask also is, what do your clients want? You may think it's having it on the ground. You may think that it's the human to human support, but what if your customers don't want that? What if they want a mobile app instead? What if they want to call and they just want to press a few buttons, right? So I think what's important.
Well, they certainly, some do want that. So I have a mix. Yeah. I'll actually answer your question for you. It's a mix, and I have one extreme to the other.
Yep.
I have some that definitely just want the app and they want to order like they would a pizza on Uber Eats or something, right? And then I have the other side of the spectrum, which is old school maintenance guys that some of which just got cell phones, they still wanted pagers. So I have a combination of both, right?
So it's a hybrid, right? So in that situation, what I would say is straight away, you don't want to set up a traditional call center, right? What you want is you want to have a hybrid approach, right? So I would use technology using conversational AI technology and a contact center together, right? I think that's important, right? So the conversational AI technology can take care of those that don't want that human interaction, right? But they get a 24/7 support, right? Whether it is text message, chat, email, and so on. Let the conversational AI piece take care of that for you, and then 100% have a local team that is there that is providing that one-on-one human, and keep it in-house.
So I'm curious about the conversational AI. I've seen a little bit of it with like the demos of it doing sales calls and stuff. How effective is it going? Because again, this is new technology.
It is new technology, and it's getting better, right? Every day, right? So again, it's going to do what you're going to program it to do, right? You don't want to leave it out there to make its own decisions. I think that's the risk, right? And that's where the experiences can go wrong. But program it well. So think about the customer journey. I think that's very important when you're building out a contact center or a conversation AI solution. You need to think about that customer experience or the customer journey from the time they're interacting with your business, right?
Building one of those out, what's the time frame look like for something like that? Because like I've built my own chatbots before, which was very tedious. But I'd imagine it's similar.
Yeah, look, see, I built our own chatbot as well, right? When we did this, I don't know how many years ago it was, maybe 6-7 years ago, right? And I updated maybe 2 years ago, right? But it took me one full day to get it done, right? But again, that was an easy piece, right? But when you think about like a conversational AI kind of a solution, you want to get the right people in. You don't want to just do it by yourself. Get in 2 or 3 other individuals who can help you think from the customer's point of view and think of operational aspects and so on, right? So it could be your core team, or you get an external team of consultants to help you with it, or the technology vendor itself, whoever you're partnering with, right? That process.
How do they train it? Like, how do they actually train it? I'm just curious again, because I haven't played with it.
Yeah. No, look, it's all done on the technology platform. But what's more important is first you got to map out the journey, right? What happens in this situation, this scenario, and blah, blah, blah. You got to think about that.
The if then.
So do maybe about a week of getting that done, right? If it's more complex, I think in your business, it's probably about a week, but it really depends on how complex the business is, right? That it could go on for about 3 months as well. So once you've got that going, getting the development, again, depending on how complex it is and how many platforms it needs to integrate to see, because, a chatbot is good. It's all fine. But where conversational AI comes in is that it connects with the different technologies that you have in the business and it processes things, right? So that is where those integrations and so on become important. You've got to test them and all of that, right? So say about, 4 weeks, for a simple process with the right amount of testing that's done before you go live.
So again, this is so interesting to me because I had one of my developers on earlier yesterday, and this is one of the subjects we were talking about is how AI plays a role and whether or not he's going to be integrating some AI into his software, right? Yeah. And you're like the other opposite of his point of view. He's more reserved on it, and he doesn't really see AI coming into play with his software yet. And you're on the other side going, no, this is, one of the main solutions that should be plugged in. So it's interesting to hear both point of views there with it. Again, he's a different generation software developer, and it's just interesting to watch this all develop when it comes to the AI. And AI has been a main topic throughout my podcast the past week, right? It keeps coming up into the conversation. And some people have the point of view that a lot of companies are implementing it more as a marketing tactic, right? We have AI now, right? And then there's companies, yours sounds very useful with like the talk, but I don't know if society is ready to deal with that yet. You would know more because you implement these things. What's the feedback from the client base when they're getting, an AI conversational tool when they call a number?
Yeah. It comes back to, who's the customer? You know what I mean? For example, right? I fly a lot with American Airlines and I love their conversational AI solution. You know what I mean? It's great. I call, I enter a few details. It straight away, it picks up my reservation details and so on with my record locator, and I get a call back. You know what I mean? And they've already got all my details and so on. It's perfect, right? Again, it depends on who the customer is, you know what I mean? And what do they want? How do they want to be? And I think what businesses need to think about is making sure they have all channels available. That's very important, right? Make it easy for your customer, regardless of the platform that you're making available to them, right?
It's funny. I saw TikTok just yesterday. I'm getting hooked on that app because I'm trying to build the show, obviously, right? But there was a guy on there and he was going on this rant about a restaurant that he wanted to pick up food on the way home. And he's like, I don't understand. Why can't I just call this place and just order my food. They want to sell the food. Why are they making this so difficult for me to place an order for pickup? Right.
I agree.
Yeah.
And look, on that same topic, right? Like there's a few restaurants, I order on a very regular basis, right? And it's quite frustrating to call them every time, give them your name, give them your telephone number, and repeat the same order.
Or have to download their app.
Yeah, exactly.
Or have to do XYZ, right?
What I would prefer is if I was calling, it'd be like, hello, hello, Jayesh, is it the same order? And all I've got to say is yes. And it's done, should be easy. Or if it's a different order, yeah, cool, no worries, what would you like? But again, it's having like a smart system, right? That can look at what is a trend? What are the items that you usually order, right? What's the frequency? And if you use predictive analytics, for example, if you know that, your customer hasn't come back, who typically comes every week, or they order Wednesday dinner, proactively at 5 p.m., send them a text message. Would you like us to get your order ready for you? You know what I mean? And it's thinking about using these to increase sales as well, generating revenue, making your customer's life easier, right? There's so many things that can be done. But again, businesses are they're just too busy doing day-to-day operations, and this is really where you need a separate team within the organization to think about how you integrate certain piece of technology to, increase sales, increase customer experience, increase employee experience, and so on as well, right? And if you get that right, your business is automatically going to grow anyway.
Which segments of the industry would you say are doing better with this and which ones are doing worse, right?
It depends. Look, we do a lot in the finance areas, right? So, finance functions are the first lot of, you mentioned AI and you mentioned marketing earlier, right? And you're right. There's lots of AI tools out there it's easy to use for marketing solutions, right? But that's a very, very small piece of the whole AI and automation function out there, right? That's available, right? So typically the use cases are in finance where, your accounts receivable, accounts payable, all those functions are automated, right? It starts there, then it gets into HR, right? So again, in HR, it's all about all the way from screening of candidates, recruitment, all the way through to, retention, right? That's again where automation, RP and AI solutions come in. From there, it goes into IT, right? Thinking about, every time you have a new user that's coming into your organization, there's certain things that need to be done. You can automate all those things, right? So that's really how it looks. And marketing it's a given over there. It's designed to make people's life easier, right? Things that were taking, an hour today could take 15 minutes to do, and that's the power that it's got. The right marketing teams will know how to use it, but the use cases and the ROI are a lot more in other functions, such as, the finance, the HR, the IT, the contact centers, and so on.
How do you define AI?
Look, it's artificial intelligence, right?
So, that's what they say, right? But it's really right now. It's not. It's not what you envision with AI technology, right? It's not. It's not self-thinking yet. We're still programming it to do a task. It's just more automated in the way that it delivers that task. But
before you get there, right? Before any business gets there, you first got to have your basic automation in place, right? So, and that's where a lot of businesses today, there's lots of buzz around AI. Everyone just wants to get on this AI bandwagon, but they really don't understand the basics, right, of automation. So what I would say is, look, before you get there, think about your existing systems that you have in place across you. It's not just marketing. Think about your entire organization. Think about the systems that you have. Think about the workflows in there. Are they optimized? Do you have too much technology, right? Do you need so many applications? Could you consolidate, right? Because it's very easy to just go buy an app or buy a software that's going to do one point or one function. But
while you were talking, that's what I was thinking while you were talking. I'm like, well, there is stuff that does all that, but you're talking about either utilizing those, there's software as a service for everything now, right? And so you can take your accounting system that they're already using that process to automate XYZ, but then you have to buy all these different softwares. Is your company coming in and replacing those or just integrating it to all talk?
Yeah. So firstly, what we do is we try and see if there is too much and can you do more with less, right?
Gotcha.
And let's try and first remove things that you don't need, right? That's important, right? Less is more again, right? And then if you need to have So like, and this happens usually in cases where, there's legacy systems that you can't come out of, you know what I mean? And there are certain tools that are very, very specific for a particular industry. You've got to keep it and so on. We get that. Cool. So let's optimize that first. And then let's add a layer of connectivity. Because if you don't connect these systems, that's where you have duplication issues. You have, there's copy pasting issues. You don't have reports. You don't have analytics and so on. So then what we do is we connect them all together, right? And sometimes, connections can be, there's APIs again. There's, people talk about, hey, I've got an API integration. Yeah, that's all cool. APIs will do certain pieces, right? Between certain systems. But there are limitations there, you know what I mean? So when you reach those limitations, that's when you add like a robotic process automation solution on top of that, you know what I mean? And then when you've got all of this sorted, you have your analytics and you have everything else going on, then you can start thinking about AI solutions, you know what I mean? About letting the bots think, you know what I mean? Think and process. But that's all predictive, Microsoft with their Copilot, you know what I mean? They're making nice advancement over there, you know what I mean? So
I use Copilot.
Yeah. There you go again. But with Copilot, it's, it could be garbage in, garbage out, you know what I mean? So it comes back to if you give it the right structures to start with.
Oh yeah, we had nothing with it originally, right? And then we had to perfect the inputs.
Exactly.
Then it started doing okay.
100%, So there you go. So again, let's, for any business that's thinking about using AI and stuff, get the basics going first with technology, and then you can get there.
Awesome. What's the plan for you with it, right? Do you plan on scaling it out? I know before we went on camera, we were talking about what I plan to do with my business and direction I plan to go, right? Do you plan on staying in as leadership for the remainder? Is this a lifelong journey, or are you thinking about going the route later down the line like a lot of franchisors do today and end up exiting to private equity and moving on?
Yeah, sure. Look, I think, I'm, at this point in time, just enjoying the journey, you know what I mean? Yeah. It's nice fun, you know what I mean? And so on, like, speaking of businesses, solving different challenges, coming up with innovative solutions, it's fun, right? So I think if you're having fun, then that's the most important thing, right? Our vision is to get to $1 billion in ongoing revenue, and we want to get there by 2030, right? We want to have 500 franchise partners who are all very successful, right? Getting to the 6 or 7 figure businesses within, and it's always going to be an 80-20. We know that 20% will get to the 7 figure, the rest will be on the 6 figure, and that's perfectly fine as well, right? But, I think we want to get to that $1 billion first, and the franchising and continuing the client acquisition will be one part of it. There could be some investments that we make along the way, some acquisitions that we make, right? And, from there, once we get to $1 billion, maybe we'll up it to make it, the next target be $5 billion, whatever it is, right? And we'll keep going.
I love it. Yeah. Cause the money is just a metric to measure your progress, right?
Exactly.
It's a trend with absolutely every single founder that I've spoken with. It's all the same. It's the money is not the journey, right? People are looking on the outside when they look at a business owner or a founder or somebody that started something. They see it as, oh, well, they're rich. Why would they continue doing this? It's like the only reason they got there is because it wasn't for the money. Yeah. Like that's a benefit of it, but it's especially in the franchise space. That's a difference between, Wall Street and corporate America, the more all corporate structure. The franchising attracts better people, honestly. It just does. I really appreciate the franchise space. Anyway, that was more a statement than a question.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with you. You know what I mean? And, you come in, you give it 100% and you get, the more you give, the more you get, right?
Yeah.
It's as simple as that.
It's all about building people up. How do you handle that within your organization? I know you obviously have a support heavy structure, which is awesome. Supporting your partners, not franchisee partners, supporting your partners throughout the areas. Are there any tips you would have on, controlling culture and keeping them motivated, keeping them on track, or any advice you could provide to a franchisor?
Yeah, look, I think getting the culture right is very important, especially when you're starting out as well. I mean, it can be very tempting, to just get going and just have your first few franchise partners, But I think it's very important to get it right from the very beginning because it can, again, have it's like 5 or 10 year contracts that you're signing, you know what I mean, and stuff. So you want to get in the right team. So,
I like to say we're getting married in a sense, right?
yeah, 100%, right? And it's fine, you should be able to, it's fine to reject more than you accept. That's actually a good indicator in any franchise system, right? So I'd say, yeah, get the culture right. And then from there, get the partners working together. I think that's very, very important, right? Whether it is on a regional basis, more local or global, whatever it is, get your partners working together, create mediums for it, right? In our case, virtually we use Microsoft Teams, right? And we have groups, we have chats, and we have all of that going. We catch up every week for insight sessions every Monday where we talk about.
Is this company wide or is this regional?
No, that's company wide, right?
Okay.
We do this, and we worked at a time zone that works quite nicely from the West Coast all the way through.
That was going to be my next question. How do you do that when you have locations, in Europe and then in Texas? Right?
So it's 10 a.m. Eastern, right? And it works very well for from the West Coast all the way through to East Europe. You know what I mean? Yes, it's evening for them, but it's still a good time. You know what I mean? It's not too bad, right? And as we may start doing another session at a different time, and that would cover Asia, right? All the way through to Australia, from Middle East, Asia, Australia. But we're still growing in the region, right? So right now, those partners, they watch our recordings on a weekly basis, right? So we record it and stuff, but eventually we'll just duplicate these.
Are they required to attend and if they're not, how's your attendance would go with those?
Yeah, look, it's you want to try, we don't make it mandatory, right? It's up to them. Again, they're business owners, right? If they want to succeed, like they bought into the franchise because they wanted to become a business owner. They wanted to control their destiny and so on. Now, these are tools out there where we are educating them in terms of these insight sessions that we host every week. We're talking about case studies, right? About, problems we've solved. How did we get the client? What did we do? What was the benefit and so on? It's in their best interest to participate, right? And ask questions and so on, right? It's a learning. If they don't, and some, they may be busy, right? They may not be able to attend everything. They could have client engagements. They've got the recordings to watch, you know what I mean? So they can watch that. So yeah, we make it available and then it's for them, right? We don't mandate it. It's the same thing with our conferences. We do quarterly conferences, again, in person. Again, yes, there's investment into it, right? It's not only,
now, are these in person?
These are in person, right? But there is time investment into this. There's travel and there's things. But again, we make it available.
Now, is this global too? Your quarterly conferences, or are those also?
Yeah. So, we do these, for example, this year, we started the first one was a virtual one in January, right? The second one, we're doing a 10th year celebration. We're doing it in India. We then have the one in July, which is in Mexico. And the last one for the year is going to be in Vegas, right? And again, it's open for our partners to come in from anywhere. You know what I mean?
I love it. How many do come from, overseas?
Yeah. So overseas, they usually will try and do one a year. That's, it works.
It's a long flight. I mean, if you're talking Europe or.
Yeah, 100%, right? But again, if they do, we don't expect them to be at all. It's not practical, right?
Yeah.
We're doing 4, so, they're able to attend 1 or 2 in person, right? Again, the more they do, the more they network, the better it is. 2, I think, would be the optimal number.
What about screening? Do you have tips for franchisors on screening for their franchisees?
Yeah.
Do you guys, for example, this is some do it, some don't, personality assessments and things like that. Do you have any best practices that you found really help?
Yeah. So, in those personality assessments, they help, absolutely. I mean, it's a filtering tool, it's a screening tool and so on as well. However, I think what's important, the way we would like to look at it is we give them all the information they need, right? And what we then like to see is them putting up a business plan and presenting it to us, right? That's when we understand if they have understood the model.
Do you give them a template, or do you just ask them to put it together? Because that's 2 different things, right?
Yes.
If you give them the whole template, you're getting 2 different results, right? To measure their character. But
look, we give them a business model canvas, right? And again, when we give this to them, those that have used business model canvases will get it straight away. Those that are looking at it for the first time, it's again an easy model. Again, we don't need 10, 20-page business plans, right? We just need something that is short, straight to the point. And these are things where we can evaluate the person as well. You know what I mean? We can see, look, are they very detail oriented, or are they just going to get straight to business and action a few things, whatever it is. That with them presenting the business plan, if they were to join us, how they would execute is an important part in our process, right? And, when they come to that meeting, if they aren't well prepared, and so on, if they come to that meeting and they still have questions, then, that's a point in time where we need to decide if we want to proceed. But I think, in our case as well, that initial call that we have with candidates, in the first 5 minutes, you decide whether you want to proceed with them or you don't, right? And if it's not the right fit, it's best to tell them at that point in time, look, there's plenty of more options out there. Ours is not going to be a good fit, but there are other options to look at.
And what's your process look like for a new franchisee? How long's the cycle for them to, close and sign on the dotted line and purchase their territory?
So the way it works is, we have an initial call. If we do see a fit there, we then provide them access to our portal, right? So when they get onto our portal, we've got quite a few videos in there that explain our model in detail. So, they usually need to spend about 3 to 4 hours on our portal, right? Going through everything. There's case studies in there. There's plenty of information.
I'm just curious, are you getting the metrics on how long they're in there and everything? Okay, cool.
We track that. Right?
Yeah. I just got a portal too that does the same thing.
Yeah.
It's highly valuable.
Super, super important, right?
Yeah.
We then get them to attend our Meet the Team webinar, which we host every 2 weeks, right? So that's, again, it's a step in the portal itself for them to register, right? So they attend that, the webinar, the Meet the Team webinar, then they connect back with their managing directors. So the last step in our portal is to set up a time to connect with the managing directors. So they've got the booking links and so on as well. So again, when our managing directors have that meeting, they go into the portal and they check how long have they spent, And typically the candidates that are interested, that get it, they will spend a lot of time. They go back to the same videos. They click on it multiple times. We get a good idea.
They're engaged. They're actually, they're buying into the model and they're excited about it if they're going back. They have questions and they're trying to answer them.
Yeah. So, they'll do that. Then they get into, they'll have the meeting with the managing director. If there's alignment there, we give them the business plan template. That's when they put that together. And then there's a meeting that's arranged with myself where they're presenting the business plan, right? And then, from there, again, if there's alignment, we'll get into all the paperwork and so on, which again, would take about 2-3 weeks. The FDDs are disclosed to them. We don't need to disclose FDDs upfront. To me, that's a 200-page document, right?
Yeah, I do it in step 4 or 5 in my portal. But yeah.
So we do it once we make sure there is alignment and we want to proceed. That's just paperwork that needs to be executed. But the other stuff is more important. The alignment, the business plan, and so on.
And how often do they make it to the interview with you and then you end up rejecting them? I'm just curious about this because I have to make those decisions as people come through.
Look, I think, our managing directors do a great job in terms of screening candidates and so on as well. Again, at the end of the day, they're the ones who are going to be working with them on a daily basis as well. So they don't want to get someone that is not going to be a good fit as well, right? So it's very, very rare that...
I guess I should have asked that question different. Do you? Because they're essentially a master franchise, right? Under your model?
Yeah, they're area developers. So the franchise agreements are still signed with us.
Okay.
Because that's the main difference between the area development versus master franchise, right?
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay. I was confusing the two.
Yeah. But in a sense, legally, yes, we signed the agreement, but on a practical day-to-day basis, they're working with our managing directors, working with the managing partners, right?
Okay.
Yeah. So look, it's very rare. It's maybe like 1 in 20 that, I have a conversation and don't have a good feeling about it.
Well, that's good.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So what would you tell somebody that has no business experience operating a business? They're potentially shopping. They're deciding to either open their own business, buy a franchise. What would be your advice for them to make the analysis on what direction to go, whether it's franchise or, starting their own thing or maybe purchasing another business? And what would you tell them to focus on to be successful regardless the path that they choose?
Okay. So maybe, I
know that's a couple different things.
I'll tie this in with my journey, right? So when I wanted to start, a business, I didn't have a concept, right? And so for me, purchasing a franchise was a no-brainer. I knew with a franchise, they had a system, they had a proven service, everything was there, product, everything was there. All I had to do was I had to execute it, right? And I was confident in that, in execution. So that wasn't so I think what an individual needs to ask is, look, if you have a concept, you got to validate it, right? Make sure you're speaking to the right people that have success. Like a lot of people say, that I've spoken to in the past would be like, I want to run this past my accountant. Well, is your accountant a business owner? You know what I mean? Like, have they built a 7 or 8 figure business?
I never take business advice from my CPA. I will take advice on what to do with money and avoid taxes.
Exactly.
But yeah.
So, like, again, you got when you're trying to validate your concept, validate it with the right people that have been there, that have done it, and so on as well, right? There's a few different ways to validate it. So, right. But if you don't have a concept, get into a franchise system, right? That it's a risk-free approach. However, when you get into a franchise system or you start your own business, you've got to give it 100%. You know what I mean? You've got to give in the effort to make it work. So, in my business, when I purchased a franchise, I knew how to execute and so on as well. And look, my strategy initially was, look, I would go and establish relationships because, we were doing mortgages at that time, right? So we thought we could establish relationships with realtors, with attorneys, and so on as well. But, when I reached out to them, they already had existing relationships in place and they weren't open to an idea of setting up new ones. They've been doing it for 10, 20, 30 years, you know what I mean? And I was new. So it wasn't going to work. So I changed my strategy. I had to change. And I started spending $5,000 a month on local area marketing. And this is back in 2010, right? But what it did is I spent this for a good 9 months. But what it did, it changed the strategy in sense now I was getting clients were coming to us first and I was able to refer them out, right? So in 9 months, you
changed your position to where you're the one with the referrals.
Yeah. And they had to refer back, you know what I mean? So we changed. But again, it meant that, I was prepared to, put in that $5,000 a month into marketing. So it's very important, right? When you get into a business, into a franchise, make sure you put in the effort and you fund it well enough to market it as well.
Yeah, funding's definitely underestimated, I think, and so is the amount of effort that somebody has to put in to start a business. I think a lot of people opening something for the first time or starting a business, even if they've been at a high level of management, they underestimate what it takes to get it off the ground.
Yeah, and usually, if you've been at high, the C level or upper management, it's very different because there you have an entire team of people that are doing several things, right? A business is completely different. Over here, you've got to do things. You're pretty much operating the entire piece. And we've usually seen CEOs, where, when they start a business, they actually have no clue how to get it off the ground. You know what I mean? Because they've just had people, they've just been delegating and they're more around the strategy side. But starting your business is not about strategy. It's about actual execution.
How many people, when you opened your mortgage business, was it just you solo or?
Yeah, it was me first. It was just myself. But what I had done at that time is I had a full-time job as well, right? So I had to transition. So what I did is I set up the office and I had a receptionist. So, the receptionist would take appointments for me. I would do them after hours in the evening. And, slowly as it started happening, I would do them in my lunch break. You know what I mean? And so on. But again, that was a shock. It was for a 9-month period. In 9 months, I'd replaced my income and I quit my job and I expanded the business.
That's a smart strategy. Some businesses that they're not going to be able to do that depending on the vertical that they go into, right? And they're going to have to dive straight in. Do you have any specific tips for somebody like that?
Yeah. Look, in those kind of situations, just make sure you fund it, right? Yeah. So make sure that, for the first 1 year, you've got your living expenses taken care of because, again, you don't want to stress about your day-to-day, right? That's got to, you don't want to impact your lifestyle. So make sure you've got that covered. At the same time, just make sure you've got enough to keep the business going. You know what I mean? Because the strategy that you have when you start may not necessarily work out. You know what I mean? And it may change 2 or 3 times before it works out, right? So you just got to have plan A, plan B, plan C, right? Make sure you fund it well and then get into it.
Being comfortable with change, that's a good point in and of itself right there, right? That's every single successful business person I've ever met has the ability to shift and change, right? And I think that's a trait. This is just my, my input there. I think that's an important trait to have going into your business is understanding that not everything that you do in your business is going to work out.
Yeah.
And you need to recognize it. And the sooner that you accept it didn't work and move on, the better off you'll be in your business.
Yeah, it's not a sign of failure. It actually means you're getting one step closer to success. You know what I mean?
That's an opportunity to learn.
Exactly. So just be prepared for that, and you'll be on the right track, right? If that was happening, right?
Yeah.
But again, you could have some that say, "Hey, look, I tried this strategy, it didn't work," and you give up. But they're never going to be successful in any business. You know what I mean? For those individuals, when you get into business, you've got to have that risk appetite. You know what I mean? And just go for it.
And personal responsibility. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Jayesh, I think, do you want to tell them a little bit about where they can find your company and yourself, whatever information you want to share with the audience?
Yeah, sure. Look, our website, valenta.io is, where, you can learn more about our services. ValentaFranchise.com is where we have more information around our franchise. I'm on LinkedIn. LinkedIn, it's Jayesh Kasim, and you'll find me there as well.
Awesome. And I'll put that on screen. So for those of you that are actually watching it, go look at the screen, because I know you're not staring at it the whole time. It's a long podcast, but I'll put his web address and everything in the description as well. Jayesh, thank you so much for your time today. I appreciate it. And I look forward to hopefully getting you on one of our live events in the future. So.
Yeah, Adam, look, it was great. Thanks very much for having a great conversation.
Awesome, man. Thanks.
Good luck.
I'm Refresh Man, and I'm here to empower you to take charge of your destiny. Are you tired of working for someone else? Do you dream of making a difference in your community and unleashing your full potential? Then look no further than Refresh Franchising. With us by your side, you can start your own heroic business venture with the unwavering support and cutting-edge resources you need to conquer your goals. Our franchise model is like a super serum that will give you the strength to succeed. Refresh provides extensive training, ongoing mentorship, and an established brand with a loyal customer base. Plus, you'll become part of a heroic league of entrepreneurs who serve as allies on your journey towards greatness. And the best part, you won't have to waste time building your business from scratch like some kind of neophyte. With Refresh Franchising, you'll hit the ground running at lightning speed and unlock the key to heroic financial success. So gather your courage, summon your inner superhero, and visit refreshfranchising.com to launch your heroic franchise journey. Always remember, together, we can achieve greatness.